Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the walls of maximum security prison just witnessed one of the most chilling, gut-wrenching scenes in hip-hop history? What if I told you that Durk, the man who's been painted as untouchable, indestructible, larger than life, is now lying in an ICU bed fighting for every single breath, while his own sister collapses outside those sterile white doors, screaming for help that may never come? You think this sounds like a movie? No. This is the nightmare reality that has gripped fans, enemies, and the industry like wildfire. Cameras weren't supposed to roll, guards weren't supposed to talk, but somehow, footage leaked. Blood on the floor, nurses rushing, and a sister completely shattered, crying out like her world just ended. But let me ask you this, how do we get here? How does a rap mogul who bragged about surviving every street war end up silenced by the very system he thought he could manipulate? And more importantly, who wanted him down so badly that a prison attack turned into a fight for his life? Buckle up, because what I'm about to break down isn't just another headline. This is the scandal nobody was supposed to see. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, standing at the crossroads of rap royalty and prison tragedy. The image is burned into minds of everyone who's seen that leaked footage. Durk, once the untouchable voice of the streets, now motionless, strapped to hospital machines, while his sister breaks down just beyond the ICU doors. The tears, the panic, the desperation. This isn't just about one man's downfall. No, this is about the collapse of an entire empire and the ugly truth that was never meant to reach the public. But let's rewind, because to understand the gravity of what's happening now, we need to remember who Durk really is, or at least who he wanted us to think he was. This is the man who built a career off raw survival. The self-proclaimed street general who rapped about dodging bullets, beating cases, and outsmarting enemies. And yet, here he is struck down, not by a rival gang shootout in Chicago, but by the cold, brutal reality of life behind prison bars. Now, this ICU scene didn't come out of nowhere. This was brewing for months, maybe even years. Anonymous sources, yes, the ones who suddenly have a lot to say now that the man is fighting for his life, claim that Durk had enemies on every tier of that prison. You think the streets are dangerous? Try living in a cell block where men who once idolized you now see you as a walking target. Jealousy, revenge, and yes, a few dirty favors exchanged behind closed doors. That's the toxic cocktail that exploded into the violent prison attack that left Durk clinging to life. But why now? Why this brutal ambush at the peak of his legal battles? Well, insiders are whispering about a green light. That's right. Word is, someone high up in the prison hierarchy decided Durk's time was up. Maybe it was payback for old street debts. Maybe it was punishment for flaunting his riches while other inmates rotted away with nothing. Or maybe, and this is where it gets truly sinister, maybe it was orchestrated from outside the prison walls. Imagine that. Powerful figures who wanted him silent or good, pulling strings until the perfect opportunity came. And then the attack. According to the leaked report, yes, the one circulating on back channels, even though officials are desperately trying to scrub it clean, Durk was blindsided during a routine movement. 1 minute he was walking the corridor, the next he was face down in a pool of blood. Weapons appeared, fists flew, and guards conveniently took their time arriving. Suspicious? Oh, extremely. Almost like they wanted it to happen. Almost like the cameras rolling in that prison where they're not to protect. But to document his downfall, fast forward to the ICU, and here's where the story rips your heart out. His sister, let's call her the last soldier still fighting for him, was there when they rushed him through those sterile hospital doors. And eyewitnesses say she screamed so loud the entire floor froze. "Don't let him die," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. Imagine the weight of that moment. A sister begging doctors to save the brother who once embodied invincibility. That's the kind of pain money, fame, or rap clout can't heal. And this isn't just family drama. This is sending shockwaves through the entire music industry. Fans are flooding social media with hashtags like #PrayForDurk and #JusticeForDurk, while others are, let's just say, less sympathetic. Because let's not forget, Durk has been painted as both hero and villain. To some, he's the voice of struggle. To others, He's the architect of violence who brought this fate upon himself. And now, with ICU machines beeping in the background, those debates are louder than ever. But let's be real here. ICU or not, this isn't just about medical survival. No, this is about reputation survival. If Durk doesn't pull through, his legacy becomes frozen in this one horrific image. A fallen king taken out not by his art, but by his enemies. And if he does survive, you better believe this ICU chapter will be weaponized in every song, every beef, every headline moving forward. Still, the bigger question is hanging in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Who ordered the hit? Because don't be fooled, this wasn't random. The brutality, the timing, the fact that footage slipped through the cracks, it all screams inside job. Someone wanted this out. Someone wanted the world to see Durk not as a survivor, but as a broken man gasping for air while his sister sobs outside the door. And let's talk about those leaks for a second. Convenient, isn't it? First the attack, then the footage, then the emotional ICU scene. It's almost too perfect, like someone's writing a script. Which begs the question, was this tragedy or was this theater? Think about it. If you were a rival label or even a certain someone with skeletons of their own, wouldn't you love to redirect the public's attention with a shocking headline like Durk fights for his last breath? Meanwhile, prison officials are scrambling. Their statement? An incident occurred, and the inmate was transported for medical attention. That's it. Cold, clinical. Like the man they're talking about isn't a global figure, but just another name in the system. But of course, they're not fooling anyone. The public knows something bigger is going on. And when truth gets buried, leaks become gold. So here's where we're at. Durk is in critical condition. His sister's unraveling outside the ICU. Fans are divided and whispers of conspiracy are getting louder by the hour. And ladies and gentlemen, if you think this ends here, you're wrong. Because the deeper you dig, the dirtier it gets. What happened inside that prison wasn't just a fight. It was a calculated move with consequences that could rock the entire hip-hop world to its core. And here's where the scandal flips from whispers to a thunderous explosion. Because what happened after Durk was rushed to the ICU isn't just about a rapper clinging to life. Oh no, this is about a system breaking down in real time, exposing cracks so wide you could drive a convoy of armored trucks straight through them. According to one exclusive tip that slid into our inbox at Celebrity Press, the attack on Durk wasn't some random prison brawl. Anonymous guards have already whispered to so-called trusted outlets that the attack looked orchestrated. Like someone had been waiting for the exact moment the cameras were down and the shift rotations were at their weakest. And if you're thinking, wait, isn't that too perfect to be a coincidence? Congratulations! You're already starting to smell the rot that's been festering behind those iron bars. But here's the kicker. One guard claimed that just hours before the attack, a higher-up prison official received a confidential package. Thick envelope, unmarked, suspiciously heavy. Now, we can't say for sure what was inside, but according to our anonymous whisperer, the timing lined up a little too perfectly. Meanwhile, outside those sterile white ICU walls, Durks Sister was reportedly breaking down in ways that even shook seasoned reporters. Eyewitnesses describe her as pacing, screaming, collapsing in tears, then picking herself up again like a woman fighting for her brother's life with every ounce of strength in her body. One bystander told us, it wasn't just grief, it was rage. You could tell she knew something wasn't right, like this wasn't just prison violence, this was a hit. And the streets? Oh, the streets were buzzing like an anthill that just got stomped on. Social media lit up with hashtags faster than wildfire. Hashtag pray for Durk. Hashtag justice for Durk. Hashtag prison setup. Within hours, TikTok conspiracy threads exploded. One viral video with 2.3 million views showed a slowed down clip of a prison ambulance leaving the facility. People swore they saw a mysterious black SUV tailing it all the way to the hospital. Coincidence? Please. You know how the internet rolls. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it grows into a full-blown forest of speculation. Now, let's not pretend this is the first time Durk's name has been tangled in chaos. Remember the infamous Atlanta shooting? Or the courtroom smirks that had fans either cheering for his defiance or slamming him for arrogance. Every single one of those incidents gets dredged back up, whenever his name trends, like old receipts nobody ever threw away. And now, those receipts are being waved around as proof that karma has finally come knocking at his cell door. But hold on, because just when you thought this was about to settle into a tragic hospital vigil story, more puzzle pieces started falling onto the table. A supposed leak from within the hospital itself, allegedly from a nurse who couldn't stand to stay silent, claimed that when Durk was brought in, his injuries didn't look like the messy aftermath of a chaotic fight. They looked precise. Clean cuts, brutal but targeted, like someone knew exactly where to strike to inflict maximum damage without killing him instantly, almost like a warning. And that's where things got even darker, because according to street chatter, there's talk of a list circulating in the prison underground, a hit list with names scribbled down of rappers, gang affiliates, and so-called liabilities. One anonymous ex-inmate told us, "It's not random in there. Nothing ever is. If someone gets jumped, someone proved it. And if they survive, that's usually because somebody up top wants them to suffer before they go." Now ask yourself, why would someone want Durk alive but broken? Who benefits from him fighting for his life instead of just being erased in a headline? Theories are flying like bullets in a drive-by. Some say it's rivals on the outside sending a message inside. Others whisper it's the system itself. A way to control a man who's still seen as a cultural powerhouse even behind bars. Meanwhile, Durk's sister reportedly screamed at the hospital entrance, "You're not telling me everything. You're hiding something." Imagine that. A sister going head-to-head with hospital security, demanding answers, refusing to be shoved aside like just another grieving family member. Eyewitnesses swear she looked ready to storm the ICU herself. Consequences be damned. And let's not ignore the fans, because if there's one thing we know about Durk, it's that his fan base is louder than a marching band in a library. People camped outside the hospital, holding up posters, chanting his lyrics, crying into live streams with captions like, "Don't let him go. God, we need him." Some even started collecting money for what they're calling a justice fund, claiming they'll hire private investigators if the state won't act. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. A supposed insider close to the family leaked that Durk's sister has already been in contact with a lawyer, preparing to file a lawsuit not just against the prison, but against the state itself for negligence and conspiracy. If that lawsuit goes through, we're talking millions. And more importantly, we're talking headlines that would drag every skeleton out of those prison closets, one by one. So what does all this mean? It means this isn't just a story about a rapper on life support. This is a scandal metastasizing by the second, spreading like wildfire through courtrooms, back alleys, Twitter threads, and whispered conversations in hospital hallways. The ICU isn't just a ward anymore. It's ground zero for a battle that could topple reputations, expose corruption, and maybe even shake the foundations of the justice system itself. And here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because while the world is debating whether Durk will survive or not, the whispers inside the prison walls suggest that the attack wasn't just some random brawl. No. Insiders are saying this was a calculated hit, orchestrated to make sure Durk never sees daylight again. And the scariest part? His sister's breakdown outside, that ICU might not just be about fear for a brother's health. It might be the sound of someone realizing that powerful forces want him gone for good. Anonymous guards, speaking to so-called leak pages, claimed that this wasn't a one-off fight. One officer went as far as to say, "We've been warned for weeks that something was coming." Durk had enemies not just among inmates, but higher up. This attack was a message. Imagine that. Durk's life hanging by a thread while whispers circulate that he's being targeted like some pawn in a bigger, dirtier game. Now, let's look at the bigger picture here. Why would someone want Durk gone? Some say it's about gang rivalries inside the prison, old street grudges that followed him behind bars. Others insist it's about silencing him permanently before he can testify, before he can reveal anything that might drag bigger names into legal hell. Either way, the result is the same. A man clinging to life in a sterile hospital bed while his family falls apart in front of flashing cameras. The most gut-wrenching scene came when his sister reportedly shouted at prison officials, "You all knew this was coming and you let it happen." That's not just raw emotion. That's an accusation. That's a claim that authorities looked the other way while Durk's enemies circled. Public reaction? Explosive. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all flooded with hashtags like hashtag pray for Durk and hashtag justice for Durk. Fans are demanding accountability, saying if the state can't protect its high-profile inmates, then who else is at risk? Meanwhile, his haters, they're out here mocking him, saying this was karma, that he finally got what was coming. The internet, as always, has no chill. But let's not forget, every scandal has its spin doctors. Almost immediately, reports started circulating that Durk's medical condition was being exaggerated for sympathy. One anonymous insider claimed he wasn't in critical condition at all, just badly bruised. Another report suggested his team was leaking fake ICU drama to stir outrage and paint him as a victim. So which is it? Is he on the edge of death? Or is this just another carefully crafted media play? And here's the kicker. With his sister breaking down in front of reporters, the image has already been burned into public memory. Whether true or exaggerated, the optics are brutal. A superstar's sibling crying for help outside an ICU? That's not just gossip. That's the kind of headline that shakes industries. But it gets even more sinister. Certain blogs are now floating the idea that Durk's attack could be linked to a cover-up, that maybe someone inside prison wanted to shut him up before he spilled information connected to bigger investigations, cases involving trafficking, corruption, and yes, even law enforcement. If that's true, then his sister's tears aren't just about a brother's pain. They're about a family caught in the crossfire of something much larger. And what about the industry? Fellow rappers are suddenly going quiet, some posting vague emojis, some unfollowing him on socials. The silence screams louder than any public statement. It's as if everyone's waiting to see whether Durk makes out alive, or whether the ICU becomes his last stage. The streets are saying one thing. If Durk dies, it won't just be the loss of a rapper. It'll spark a chain reaction of retaliation, conspiracy theories, and a public outcry that the prison system won't be able to contain. Already, protesters are gathering outside the facility, chanting for answers, demanding the truth. And let's be real, when was the last time fans marched for a rapper like this? This isn't just music anymore. This is survival. So here's where it stands. Durk is in ICU, fighting for his last breath. His sister is breaking down, accusing the system of negligence. His fans are flooding the streets and socials with anger. And his enemies? They're grinning in the shadows, waiting for the final news. The question now is, will this story end with Durk walking out of that ICU, alive but forever scarred? Or will it end with another tragic headline? Another mural on a brick wall? Another name etched into hip-hop's graveyard of fallen stars? Because make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, what happens in that hospital room over the next few hours doesn't just decide the fate of one man. It decides the fate of a legacy, a family, and maybe even the rap game itself.